We are a group of open-minded teachers who come from different parts of Italy, who belong to different types of schools, who are passionate about their job and hopeful about the future. We all have a common goal, which is to support and spread innovation in the Italian school system.
For the creation of this group and for its growth, we really must thank Future Experience, a national project of the Italian Education Ministry which focuses on spreading innovation and technology into the Italian school system, mostly through challenge-based learning methodology. We started this process a few years ago, going ahead the present time. As a result, it has been a great intuition taking into account the emergency situation.
Kite, Knowledge Innovation Teachers, the name of our associations, comes out from the need to share and spread the acquired experiences and skills. Kite's main aim is to make students protagonists of the learning process and to promote a long life curiosity towards knowledge and civicness. In order to achieve this aim, Kite Association would like to involve teachers as innovators and mentors, reducing the traditional frontal teaching.
One of the biggest problems facing the Italian education today is the lack of innovation. School is often far from the reality. Scripted curricula often slow down innovation. The spread of new teaching methods and views in the educational system is often to deal with the skepticism. We are facing now extraordinary social, economic, and environmental challenges, an accelerating globalization, a new explosion of scientific knowledge and technological developments. School needs to be open and ready for an uncertain and unpredictable future. In such an era, it's appropriate that curricula should continue to evolve, perhaps in a radical way. Schools should continue to prepare students for jobs that don't exist yet, for technologies that haven't been invented yet. In order to navigate through such uncertainty, students need to develop specific skills, competences, and points of view. Education needs to aim to do more than prepare young people for the world of work. It needs to equip students with the skills they need to become active, responsible, and engaged citizens.
Cogeneration. Let's change the perspective. The breeding ground coming out from the observation has been the cogeneration. That is when we experienced the challenge-based learning methodology with our students in order to solve local issues affecting our areas. This was the pivotal moment when we discovered that school could be changed, improved in order to equip our students with real-life competencies, hard and soft skills. A new bridge has been built, over which our students can walk across and see the real world, the true world, on the other side. Then, coming back, they can understand that what they do has real meaning for their own lives and for their society. In other words, they feel themselves actively as a part of a true global community. Students and teachers develop a good sense of belonging to the places in which they live, and everyone has their own sense of civicness. We believe that the real lever that enabled that incredible and unstoppable process we would go on was seeing the enthusiasm of so many students and teachers coming from different schools around Italy, sitting together and talking about futures. They stayed for entire days, exchanging views, working on projects, developing their critical thoughts, enhancing for their teamwork, skills and creativity, and very impressive to us, becoming aware of themselves.
The previous experience awakened in us the desire to bring innovation into our schools and to connect them with their territories. During this step, students have to work in team in order to find sustainable, coherent, innovative solutions to real and complex problems. Also, employing their STEM competencies and their research ability. They have to connect experiences and knowledges, cultures, and also their own sensibilities. They have to let themselves getting inspired by their talents and skills in order to widen their own perspectives. Through this way, it should go beyond the traditional unidirectional learning process in order to create an interactive, dynamic, creative, and challenging learning environment. So the CBL, the challenge-based learning methodology, uses a positive and educating challenge, since it triggers an analytical process of the reality around the students and make them focused on cooperating in creating concrete strategies to deal with the analyzed problems. This process could let them starting up new enterprising activities.
The students trigger a social change and develop a sense of global and local belonging through their proposals. The CBL methodology added value is that makes students protagonists of the learning process and developers of innovation. They learn how to protect and enhance their cultural heritage, the environment, and the civil rights. They put their skills and talents to use of the whole community. It is ultimately the activity of the life-wide learning and the so-called education at the future.
Let's compare now to different points of view of this learning experience, teachers and students. Question number 1. Taking into account the methodological field, what are the main issues currently affecting the Italian school?
I think that the Italian school, such our country, has many controversial phases with strengths and weaknesses. What I think is missing the most is a shared interdisciplinary teaching approach. We are still narrow-minded about pedagogical approach and don't explore interaction and interdisciplinarity enough.
Hello, thanks for having me today. My name is Sara, and thanks for this question. I think it's very interesting and a tough one, so I'll do my best in trying to answer it. What I think about the current Italian school system, well, I don't know if we can call it current. I mean, it's definitely not modern. If we think that the last school reform, like a serious school reform, was undertaken almost a century ago in 1923, if I'm not wrong, with the Gentile reform, then we have a serious issue because it's almost the same way of learning. It is frontal and it's very passive, as many students have complained about in many hackathons that me and Elena have done in the last years. Because I believe that this kind of system doesn't really allow students to emerge in the way they could and in the way they should. And I believe that this kind of system, this methodological system, is one of the reasons why students drop out of schools when they do not have a high school degree yet. And this is a major issue that I think we should address. And we should address it by thinking about different methodologies. What I'm talking about maybe challenge-based learning, which has been a major tool in the last years, and then not many people know about in Italy. And for example, the digitalization of the learning system, the learning path, I think that we do not pay enough attention to it, because when we think about digitalization of the school system, we talk about the kind of distance learning that we are experiencing right now with the pandemic, which is not true, because there are some very useful digital tools that we can use to approach knowledge and learning in a better way in in a way that's even easier, because if the student is involved in the first person, it's not just assimilating many concepts that the teacher is telling him or her, then it's even, I dare to say, funnier to learn, because you are looking for the information yourself, and you are being more involved, and you develop a critical thinking. And we were talking about this actually in one of our meetings during the first lockdown, like me, Elena, and some other friends with whom we've done many hackathons and CBL laboratories over the years. We gathered together a Sunday evening during the first lockdown, as I was saying, and we were talking just about the effects of the pandemic on the school, on the way students are learning, and on their school experience, indeed. And then we started meeting on a weekly basis, and we were thinking about how actually a different methodology could help them during this period, because just they're doing basically the same thing in front of a computer every day. They're listening to different people speaking, going on about many issues, and teachers at the same time don't know how to teach them in a way that's not passive for them. Like, we've noticed that teachers are trying to do an effort as well, because it's not easy for either part. And like, challenge-based learning is something we've discussed. We've done some laboratories during with teachers during I think May and June, and it's good because like you have to think about what you have to do, where you find your information, how you can use it, and I think that it's a very good it's a practice, we can call that. And yes, that's something we're trying to bring in schools as students. I mean, we're talking extremely as students, absolutely. We want teachers and students to approach this new way of learning, because if we do not experience learning, then we cannot assimilate it.
Question number 2. How did the meeting with the CBL world change your learning experience?
Oh, the encounter with the CBL methodology has deeply changed how I plan and deliver each lesson. Stimulated me to research tailor-made approach that prompt my student every time, make them protagonists through peer interaction with technology and global and local issues.
Well, I could go on and on how CBL has changed my life. I try to be as brief as I can. Let's say that my first true CBL experiences were in 2016 and 2017. 2017 in particular with the Young G7, like the first student simulation of the Young G7 negotiations work was completely life-changing, because it was because of that experience that I've chosen to study international politics in university. And it was an eyes-opening experience for me, because I'd never learned things in such a way. We were, both me and my friend from my school were thrown in this group of extremely talented people who could talk at perfect English, and we had to do so much research and write our argument and translating document, learning about political stuff and bureaucratic stuff and procedures, international procedures, international laws, European laws, and I knew nothing about that, literally nothing. And it completely changed my life, because after that I had the chance to take part in different CBL experiences, not just the models, but also the hackathons, which I had never done before that moment. And it was a way that I had never seen before, which really made me change the way I used to look at school, because of course, when you don't know anything else about what you like, when you don't know that there's a different way of doing things, you think that the way you're doing things is the best way, of course. But when you approach a different reality, you see how much you're missing and how your way of learning could absolutely changed from one day to another. And I've tried to bring it in my class as well. They didn't really like the idea, but at the same time they were struggling with the passive approach I was talking about earlier. And I mean, I think about it with extremely joy in my heart, and I'm incredibly grateful for the chance I've had to take part in these experiences in these laboratories. And I'm very, very happy to be able to try to bring these laboratories, this challenge-based learning in schools to students and teachers, because it represents an added value. It's something more. It's a step forward. It's really about finding where you belong, because you start to think in your own way. You approach information. You choose and select information. You're not just learning them. You learn a lot. That's what I feel like saying, and I'm extremely grateful for having these chances. Yes.
Question number 3. What kind of action did a CBL experience inspire you the most in your daily school life?
I think that the meeting with the CBL war challenged my way of learning, encouraged me to have a face-off with other teachers, allowed me to observe new dynamics, to collect precious teaching, to question myself.
Thank you very much for the question. So unfortunately, I've never had the possibility to use this kind of methodology in my daily life, I mean in my school career, because no one of my teachers was familiar with this kind of methodology, and so I never had the opportunity to apply it in my learning process. On the other side, I had the amazing chance to mentor a group of teachers to make them use this kind of methodology, the challenge-based learning. And it was really interesting and stimulating to see how teachers approach with this very innovative kind of teaching, and on the other side of learning, of course. And I think that this methodology has a very powerful effectiveness both on learning and teaching, and it's a very important instrument for both sides, students and teachers. I think that in my personal experience, the CBL methodology helped me to see what I was learning in a different way. Because even if I wasn't applying it in a real sense, I knew what the CBL methodology was. So it brought me to have a more practical approach to what I was studying and what I am studying, and also to try always to find the right questions in order to find the right solutions, the right answers. And finally, I think that one very, very interesting thing is that with the challenge-based learning, you're always brought to think about what you're doing applied in the real world. I mean, in the reality that we live every day. And so it always helped me to see what I was studying and think, wow, this is really interesting, but how can I apply it in my daily life, in my reality nowadays, where I live and with the people I get in contact.
Question number 4. How deeply could impact the spreading of the CBL methodology on the Italian school?
I think the CBL approach can project the Italian school towards the future, even maintaining its deep cultural roots and giving rise to a new dynamic lifelong learning processes, able to lead students in the changing world?
Well, this is a really tough question. Thank you very much for asking me. I'm gonna try to answer. Well, taking into account what Sarah said before about the inflexibility of the Italian school and also the fact that some students feel kind of passive in their learning process, I think that with the challenge-based learning, they feel really involved in what they do.
Well, thank you very much to our teachers Serena Toniolo and our students Elena and Sara for their answers. Through these interviews and our talks, it has been explored the Italian education from our perspective and experience. The fil rouge which has led the whole speech has been the co-creation methodology, the pedagogical methodology we have been following along these past years, and that symbolizes our kite too. I finish by saying that our kite flies towards innovation, but still keeping its original bonds with the cultural roots and social issues. Thank you very much.